I'm embarrassed to say that I have never re-watched the movie Synecdoche, New York, which is a shame because I loved the movie and I wish that I had watched it, a lot of times, hundreds. But it's not the kind of movie that's easy to watch even once. It requires a lot from your attention. It's about this man who wants to stage a really genuine play about his own life, but the play kind of grows and grows till it almost becomes a civilization of its own. And it reminds me of this one weird quirk, awful trait, delightful idiosyncrasy that I have. And that is, I came up with this idea of something called the art machine a couple of years ago. And in the art machine, it's a way of living. It's not a thing that you make, but it's a way of living by making things. And one of the premises is that things are never finished once you finish making them, because they should always be made again. We should always be remaking. But the problem with that is that it does kind of put you in this kind of cycle, like the guy in Synecdoche, and you're sort of like never finished, which is one of the reasons why I started this weekly episodic show called Weekly Update with Andrew. A quick show where I tell you a little bit about what I did last week, what I hope to do next week, and one spiritual or existential insight about the experience. So last week, I went to Chicago. I had a great time. We walked around. One of the things I felt about the experience in Chicago was like everywhere we went, I had new eyes. I was like reborn simply by sort of just emerging into a new social world.
I also did work on a website for Clearview Incorporated, the fictitious company that is at the center of my movie, Rue. I sent out emails to potential collaborators and built a bunch of infrastructure for my next movie, which is called I Killed Your Dog. This coming week, I plan to finish the website for Clearview Incorporated. One of the things that happened to us in Chicago is that we ate at an outdoor cafe where a family was seated next to us. There was a woman and her husband and their 24-ish-year-old son and maybe his boyfriend who they were meeting for the first time, but possibly not too. He possibly could have just been a friend, and it was really kind of hard to tell what his relationship to the other three were. But during the meal, the mom had sort of had too much to drink, and she became very loose and started to tell this story.
I remember one time I came back to my apartment and she was all dressed up and she was cleaning, and I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "She's throwing herself a birthday party and all of her friends are coming over." And I thought to myself, what friends? She doesn't have any friends. The only friends she has are my friends. And sure enough, all of my friends came over. And she got drunk and passed out, and I was thinking the whole time, these aren't your friends, they're my friends. And you met all of them because they came over to hang out with me.
And after I heard the story, I sort of just felt a little bit betrayed by her. I felt like, why did you tell that story about your roommate who was so kind of grateful for the friendships that you had given to her? Like, it made it feel like those friendships that she had introduced to her roommate were given as a kind of false promise, because now she was here selling out her roommate as a kind of punchline. That's how I felt when I heard the story. But then later, the next day, I hadn't remembered my dream, and so instead I recounted this episode in my book, and immediately I realized that boy who was with them was probably their son's boyfriend that they hadn't met before, and there was a ton of nervous energy that she was just trying to put out there to connect to what it felt like to be in their 20s. And I suddenly understood the woman from a completely different angle, and that's one of the gifts that reflection, specifically writing down stories or making stories, gives to us, is it allows us to kind of backpedal from that other great wonder of being alive, that feeling of being rebirthed into the world over and over again with fresh new eyes. It gives us distance from above where we can see the way that we've been living and understand it with more compassion for ourselves and for those who we see.